high into the air from the explosions. And then the first airplane passed overhead, and I looked out, and there was a second one turning to make its run. I had been hit by shrapnel from the first explosions, which broke my leg about 5 inches above the knee. My leg looked like it had two knees. Yet, remarkably, I was standing on one leg and thrown up against a railing, so I wasn't knocked off my feet. Everybody around me had fallen and was bleeding. I was able to, on one good leg, I was able to hop down the ladder into the pilot house on the next deck, where about that time the second airplane hit and blew more holes in the pilot house, and there was blood and men on deck everywhere, and captain calling to send a message to the Sixth Fleet that were under attack.
So Captain McGonigal, who later received the Congressional Medal of Honor, I understand, he immediately sent a request for help?
That's right. Now, that was difficult as the attacking airplanes were jamming our radios, so it took a few minutes to get a message out, because all we heard was buzzsaw noises on the radio frequencies that we wanted to use. But we did, within about 10 minutes, we got a message out, and we got a reply from the carrier Saratoga that was about 300 miles away, and they said, we're sending port immediately. Remarkable thing there was that we later talked to Captain Tully. He said as soon as his airplanes got to the horizon, he got a message from Washington saying to get those airplanes back.
Why did they call them back?
We have been asking for 40 years why they called them back. The official story is that they called them back because the attack was over. Well, that wasn't true at all. There were two separate launches of aircraft. The first one that was launched almost immediately, those were called back. It was more than an hour later that they sent another set of aircraft to our aid, and those also were immediately called back. Now, the Navy story is that there was only one launch of aircraft that as soon as they were launched, they got an apology from Israel saying that it was all over and that we didn't need help anymore, so they recalled the jets.
Now, I understand that, yes.
That conveniently ignores the entire hour and a quarter or so that we were under attack.
Well, you were first attacked, I understand, by Mirage fighter bombers, but they were then joined by Mystère jets that went to napalm.
That's right. The Mirages actually exhausted all their ammo and armament, and they left the area and were immediately replaced by Mystères carrying more cannon and napalm, and so they continued the...
Isn't it unusual to hit a ship with napalm?
I think it is. They may have carried napalm because they use it a lot against the tanks in the desert, but it's probably unusual. It's also pretty lethal, since they'd already punched close to 821 6- and 8-inch holes in the ship with their rockets. The napalm would then slosh into the rocket holes and cause fires inside. It was pretty exciting.
Yeah, you say in your book, quote, the entire superstructure of the ship burst into a wall of flames, end quote.
That's quite so.
And you had quite a few casualties at this point, but this wasn't the end of the attack. You then, 1424, which would be 224 in civilian time, you had a surface attack from boats, right?
Well, that was 235, actually, that the torpedo hit, and that was followed immediately. They fired 3 torpedo boats, the ones that we had first seen when we first saw the aircraft. Those arrived at 2:35, fired 5 torpedoes, fortunately missed with 4 of them, and one of them blew a 40-foot hole in the side of the ship, killed 25 more men in addition to the 9 who were already dead and dying from the aircraft attack. That flooded the large center compartment of the ship that held our intercept team, and very nearly took us down. The ship took on a considerable list from all the water we had.
You're right, they continued to circle the ship after launching the torpedoes?
Yeah, and that's where, you get into the deliberateness of the attack. The Israelis' story, which they told the United States, was that at that point, as soon as they launched the torpedo, they saw our American flag, recognized us as an American, and never fired again. And that is total falsehood. They fired the torpedo. 3 boats came within 50 feet of the ship by the stern where our name was marked in large English letters, hovered around there for a few minutes, and then they circled us on and off for the next 40 minutes, firing at anything that moved. They fired on stretcher bearers on the main deck and bridge personnel. By this time, we had an oversized American flag. The one that I had hauled up had been shot down and was immediately replaced with the holiday colors, which was about 8 by 12 feet. So that flag was clearly shown, and our name in English. I mean, consider the difference between an Arab warship and an American Navy ship. We have our name in English on the stern and 10-foot-high letters GTR 5 on the bow. They claimed they thought we were the Egyptian horse carrier El Quasar, which was waiting to be scrapped, port at Alexandria.
They claim that they mistook the Liberty for an Egyptian ship that was being scrapped?
Yes. The El Quasar was a horse carrier for the Egyptian cavalry. It was 265 feet long compared to our 450 feet or 540 feet. It looks nothing whatsoever like us, and they certainly knew that it was in port being scrapped. But when we didn't sink as we were supposed to, they needed an excuse, so they said that they thought we were the El Quasar. You
also lowered life rafts in anticipation of a need to abandon ship. What happened then?
We launched life rafts at 3:15. They immediately came closer, machine-gunned the life rafts in the water, took one of them aboard, and left for a few minutes with that because we were being promised that Sixth Fleet aircraft were on the way, and they were obviously afraid that they would be counter the jets from the Sixth Fleet, so they left. At that point, they started sending, "We're so sorry, we thought it was an Egyptian ship. We apologize for the mistake," messages.
How many casualties did the Liberty suffer?
34 dead and 174 wounded. That number varies because there have been men within the last couple of years who have gotten Purple Hearts for wounds that weren't recognized for Purple Hearts at the time, but there's 174 wounded and 34 dead.
So as I understand it, that's about two-thirds of the whole crew was either dead or wounded?
Yeah, we had 297 men total.
Did you know they were Israelis by the end of the attack?
Most of us didn't. The airplanes that attacked us were not marked, and that's another indication that it was a deliberate attack. And nobody saw markings on the attacking aircraft. The attacking motor torpedo boats apparently had a small Star of David flying, but that was not seen by very many people, if any. The